Probably could have, shuffled this into another one, but it's. I'm glad we could all get together. So we'll just kind of kick off first with the agenda item as far as liaison reports. And I'll just kind of open it up, and if anyone wants to, kind of raise their hand if they have something to share, and then, hey, Eric, and then we can kind of go around. Anybody? I'll start with people in the room. Anybody have a liaison report for folks in the room?
No.
How about the folks on Zoom?
Yeah, I have an RMLD liaison report. Attended their meeting on November 17th. I'm still in the process of kind of getting my arms around their operations, but my background in utilities is mostly from the investor-owned utility side, and so far, from what I see from RMLD board meetings, they're doing a lot of good things. They went through a basic review of their financial structure in the general manager's report, just some updates. They plan to hold a workshop on heat pumps tentatively sometime in February. They've also started to pursue a solar array opportunity for a portion of the power needs, a very small portion. And I mentioned too, I think I had heard some of the other FinCom members expressing some interest in an expanded review or discussion with RMLD, so they suggested perhaps maybe after budget season that we pursue that. Then we got a review of the capital budget from their Director of Engineering and Operations, as well as their operational budget, and not surprisingly, as we've heard from a lot of other services, the increases in costs, both in terms of labor and supplies, impacting their work. Their next meeting is on December 20th, and I look forward to continuing working with them.
Awesome, thanks, Jackie. That's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Eric, go ahead.
Did Eric have something?
No. I
just was trying to remember what I'm liaison for besides the select board, and I think it was planning over at the town departments. And I would just, I've been following a lot of what the CPDC is doing. In fact, I was watching the MAPC meeting before, up until I got in my car to come here. And it looks like, they were presenting survey data about changing in the downtown zoning. There seems to be a lot of movement in that as a follow-up to the 2 instructional motions from town meeting. And the last thing I heard them discussing before I had to turn off the Zoom call was maybe coming up with some kind of a trade-off between density and setbacks. There was a question about the interpretation of the survey results because the person doing the presenting was interpreting a lot of people seem to be responding moderate to everything, and he just was counting that as favorable, and people were asking, hey, moderate could just be neutral to negative, and if you take that out of there, more people don't like things than do like things.
Yeah.
So, but it looks like they're being kind of responsive, and I think they're going to be having, presenting some zoning changes on December 6th. So I don't know that it's all fiscal impact directly, but that's just something that's going on that will be active in town meeting with those departments. And they're recording tonight. I think it's worth anyone who's watching who wants to know what's going on with the survey data on density and setbacks, and with, I think even at the time people were responding to the surveys, 2 more projects were proposed possibly after that. So that probably ties in with parking, which I don't know, that's really more select board than planning. But I think that was going to be the next thing discussed. So that's sort of a report on that.
No, it's interesting. Jackie and I had, I know she was interested in attending that Zoom as well. Ahead of this one, just scheduling.
At first I was thinking, is it a town hall? I'll just walk from one to the other, but it was remote.
Any other questions or any other reports to share? Cool, great. All right, well then let's move on to the next agenda item, which is discussing the ARPA Committee So in the packet, and thanks Jackie L, for including the proposal that we went through on our November 4th meeting. So I figured just maybe to start with, just maybe to circle back and see if there's any kind of questions. Just again, it's it's been a little over a month, and for folks to be able to noodle this a little bit. So I didn't know if there's. I'll kind of start there. If there's any kind of questions about the committee, about FinCom's participation, things of that nature.
I think my only comment would be something I raised at the last meeting, just to make sure the other boards know that this is how the money's being spent, because we were meeting at the same time as school committee. And I got home and turned it on and rewound, and they were still on their track of, okay, we can use this ARPA for full-day kindergarten, and now there's a petition that some residents, supposedly I know the person did the petition, and supposedly she emailed it to all of us at FinCom. So it was at finance, maybe it went to the finance
It
department.
went to me, but I didn't know there was nothing
Oh,
attached.
so I think the
There
person,
was no petition attached, so,
It
and
was
then I
the
wasn't
link.
sure if it was like phishing mail or whatever.
okay, I'm not part of the petition, and I wouldn't sign it being a FinCom member, but the person asked me what boards it could go to, and I said, well, FinCom could know that you have, 200 signatures on a petition, but she must have.
All the email said was that they had this many signatures and that but there was nothing attached.
No, because it's change.org, so maybe that was going to be the link, but I think she sent it to the wrong people. So I don't know how she sends something to all of FinCom. Does she send it to just Jackie Laverty, maybe?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. She just sent it.
I didn't get
Didn't receive anything, no.
No, I didn't get it. I didn't get it either, and I think this person wanted to mail the 3 major boards that participate in the budget discussions. The person who's behind the petition, because she messaged me, and I
So I got something yesterday, and it
Yes,
said
she
something
sent it
about a
yesterday.
petition, and it mentioned a number of people signing a petition, but nothing was attached, and that was all that it was. It
I'll
didn't say,
tell
please
her-
forward this to FinCom or anything like that, and I was not sure if it was legitimate, because I didn't recognize the
Yeah, no,
person's
it
name.
is. I can, this is the person's name. I wrote.
Yes,
Yes,
that's
so,
who it was.
but the FinCom website, which we're going to discuss later, has email contacts, and maybe she's got to send it there or send it to, I don't know how people, we got something from Bill Brown once.
He tends to bring hard copies.
Yes, maybe that's how, I was trying to think of how we got
On the
communications.
website, there is a FinCom email address, and that's what
Yeah.
Sharon is talking about.
Yeah,
The
so I
person
got
just needed
something,
to
but
explain a little
she didn't explain what it is. She
Yeah.
just said there's a petition out there for full-day kindergarten. Almost looked like, oh, do you want to sign the petition? Nothing was attached.
Yeah, she was trying to say, she wanted to give people enough time, because she wanted us to know about this going into budget season. I said, it's worth knowing that that's a community priority. So I'll reach out to her well, now that you know what it is, to just add some more information. And
But what she'd like me to, yeah, like she didn't have anything
because then she
attached
could
for me to
forward it
forward
to
to
all
you.
of us.
Yeah.
Because she's new at this, and I said I can only,
Unless
I can't sign
thought
it.
she attached the petition and then she did
Yeah.
it, because then I would have forwarded it if there was something
It was on-
attached. Nothing was attached, it just said, there's currently a petition for
Right,
full-day
people
kindergarten,
were
and so
asking
far,
us.
this many people have signed.
And it's not necessarily in our control, but it's one factor relating to ARPA money and free cash and everything. But, okay, so I'm glad.
So it
now
did
we-
go to me,
so
and I
we
would have
should,
forwarded it along if she gave more information.
I'll tell her that tonight, and so maybe we'll all, so now you know that that's coming.
So Sharon, is that generally the process? If someone finds that email and they send it, so does that end up like that?
It would go into my email. and
It
I
goes
would
into
see
your
it,
email?
And then I would forward it to whoever I think it's being directed to, but she gave no details about who she'd like them.
No, yeah,
to
I'm just more general, like if someone,
But also, she didn't attach the petition, so I thought, I didn't know what I was getting. And there was
Yeah.
really no information there, except there is a petition, and it almost looked like that she wanted me to sign it, but there was nothing attached.
Right, no, and I think that maybe might be a good idea for there to be a way to contact FinCom, like with maybe in every other board, I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean,
Well, this is it. This
Yeah,
works
this is it,
as
yeah.
long as
As
she
long as she's
understands
clear
what
about
it
what
is.
it is that she's saying. She's got to
But then
tell me what she wants me
We
to do.
have all your email
what group.
addresses, and it's
Okay.
easy enough to forward it.
yeah, because our
Yeah,
email
she said,
addresses
I
aren't
would like,
Right.
you know,
Aren't-
We've got a
FinCom
ton of
and
spam.
select board
Yep.
and school committee to
That's
get a
good.
copy of this petition. I certainly would, but there was nothing
Yeah.
attached and there was no direction given.
I think another challenge with having personal email addresses is records requests. If it all funnels
yeah.
through staff, those are public record and there's a process in place. If we all were managing ourselves, we,
Yep.
Yeah, that's
fine.
why I created a special Gmail just for my FinCom, with
Yeah.
FinCom in it, so that I only, it also makes it easier to find our stuff.
Yeah.
But,
I wasn't familiar with her. I wasn't sure what I was getting there, but there was nothing.
no, she's legit, she started it, I don't know her personally, but I know she was the person.
If she sends me whatever she wants me to forward, I will get it.
As an organization, we're also in the middle of a big cybersecurity test. So we're
That's
suspicious
an
about
excellent
anything that
point.
comes in.
That's an excellent.
Sometimes you get these
Even if-
cryptic messages and
even
if you
if she
click on
sent
something,
the
then it
link,
says,
and
you need more
changed
training.
the
Yeah. Well, Sharon, you're a human firewall. So basically, you
I'm
did,
not
you
clicking on
did.
this. I don't know what
You
this
passed.
is.
You could go, I've seen the petition, I could go to change.org right now
Okay.
and see that petition, and you'd have to sign it to see the names, and as a FinCom member, I can't sign it, so.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be, I don't even
No.
know.
Maybe she
All
could
the
print it
person
out.
has to do is just explain what they're doing.
What
Yes.
they want
You know,
me to
this
do.
is
or
so
to
and
say, I
so.
want the
Yeah.
FinCom to say
Right.
this.
Yeah, as a, I'll tell her to be more specific, and then maybe in the subject line say, further to my email or something to go to FinCom,
Yeah.
select board. So because she could send it to select board and school committee maybe more directly, but I don't know. There's
No, it's-
nobody there
Well-
from those boards here to ask.
Each of them, the elected officials have individual emails given out by the town or the schools. But if it goes to the group of select board, then that goes to me and to Caitlin.
Oh, then you would have seen it,
So
yeah.
I would see a select board one, and I don't remember seeing it.
Yeah, in school committee, I mean, really, the superintendent would be the first person, because he would be the one coming to us to say, I need money for
And this
this.
was just yesterday.
Yes.
So,
I feel like this whole thing, though, kind of points to the need for a group like this to exist, because in the absence of it, what you're going to have is individuals, individual people, individual groups sort of saying, I know what we could do, and then the big question, so how do you decide?
Yeah.
So I think it just speaks to,
Yeah.
in my
And
mind,
I-
a sense of urgency about the
And I think that they were trying
quicker.
to say, show, like, just like we would say with surveys, this is what this many members of the community thought about this, and here's a data point for you, which is an important one.
No, and I think that's, that's a perfect, kind of segue, and I think, Marion, I really appreciate you kind of bringing that up. I'm part of, kind of what I'll be doing over the next, this month is circling back both to the school committee and select board to keep them, just to keep tabs on them as far as having them assign, their members to the assigned vote, however they, that's up to them how they plan to do it. But, for their members to the committee as well. So I kind of have that on my to-do list. I know select boards, not select boards, school committees tomorrow night. But I don't think I'll do it at the meeting. I'll just probably just reach out to the chair, to both chairs and do it that way. And I know in talking to the select board chair, she had kind of planned for it sometime in January.
And the town's, Jackie can give you more details, the town's launching a new website sometime in late February, early March. And if you guys, aside from wanting changes to your page, if you want changes in communication, think about it and ask.
Yep.
One option, you can decide if it's a good option, is there's an email address for FinCom that just says finance@ci.reading.ma.us. Similarly, there's select board at blah, blah, blah. When it goes to the select board, it gets forwarded to their individual email accounts, as well as Caitlin and I. Finance only goes to Sharon, but it could be forwarded to all 9 of you. And then it depends whether you want to have separate emails for that, so that you don't have
Because
public records
sometimes,
requests.
yeah, public records requests will come in there and they may have nothing to do with FinCom, so we're kind of weeding through that for
Yeah,
you.
and in 16 years, I think this might be the third email you've got.
So do you get other emails that are related to the finance department?
I do, but they're mostly public records requests where they're asking me specifically for information about FinCom. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it could change, again, we've never had a need for
This is the
a
first time I've
email
ever
address,
gotten
but
one that.
we could have a separate one,
That
separate
should have
from what
come
Sharon
to you.
uses.
It shouldn't even say anything about FinCon. It almost looked like, here, click this link to get to that. And I'm like, I'm not clicking any link. I don't know who this is.
No, that's smart too, because then I've seen when the select board used to have email in their packet, the junk, LinkedIn and recruiter things, and those are getting out of control now. So,
We've only gone 3 in a bunch of years.
Yes.
My attitude is,
But
I don't think we need to create a solution for a problem that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
As long as
Well,
somebody's
but
clear
you
about
what
what
they'd
they
like
want
me
them
to
to
do.
do.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah, but, with ARPA, maybe we do want more feedback.
maybe can you create a dedicated thing just for to email the ARPA
Yeah.
working group? Maybe
Yeah.
that makes the most sense.
Yeah, sure.
And
yeah.
that should be part of a broader discussion with the group about community input. Because we could talk about surveys, we could talk about public hearings, we could talk about, and there's so many different ways that a dedicated email address is a good idea.
Yep. No, but outside of that, I totally agree with you. If up until this point, there's been 3, I think we're good to ride it out. No offense, Sharon, because they're coming to you, but it's not.
I don't mind. I just
I can't
feel
believe,
bad that I
can't
didn't do
believe
anything with it. I had no
They
idea.
want more emails though.
Yeah.
I honestly, if she
Select
had a
board
link, I was afraid
Yeah.
to click it, so.
I don't think FinCom.
Well, I just think, I think it's our, our role within that, kind of a little bit, we're not the lead, kind of pony on that stuff, so I think that's why they'd have to really search us out to want to get to us. They gotta exhaust all the select board and the school committee first. And they, and then they get tired out, and then by the time they get to us, there's not much left. So, good, all right, so I
Good
get,
question.
oh, yeah, sure, Jane, go ahead.
Yeah, and following up on the point you made, Ed, about, with this kind of generational amount of money, that maybe it, deserves a closer look at ways for public input. I noticed in the packet, in the timeline for this, we say February, March, public meeting, ? And then in kind of May, June, it's like solicit broad community input. I'm wondering whether there's a thought as to, sort of when that might happen. I do think that the other boards will, look to us for some recommendations about that, and I would, be in favor very strongly of doing that, public input early. And I know it creates that laundry list, but I think having that earlier than later is good, especially when, again, we're dealing with a lot of money, a lot of requests, and some of that money already committed.
No, agreed, Jackie. I think that's exactly the point. I think for us, there's it's kind of a weird way to put it. There's a latent sense of urgency. From the standpoint of getting everyone. Once we get everyone into this subcommittee, then there's a kind of a real sense of urgency to make sure that the community knows exactly that it's been formed first. And second, that we want, kind of to foster that engagement. So I think that was really kind of the thought process around the timeline. One of the main things that, that will happen in parallel of kind of community awareness is just to be able to kind of start to put that framework together and have that be presented at, in a kind of April town meeting. And I'm hopeful that, that will be, something else that we can, that there's a lot of steps that have to happen between, kind of January when, when we believe that the select board will have their, their members, and then there's a lot that has to happen in that amount of time, but I think some of the central tenets are making sure there's community awareness, it presented at town meeting, and then, starting to come up with some of that, more of that structure around, how we collect data, how we make decisions, recommendations, I should say, not decisions, but make recommendations and things of that nature. But, again, it's kind of a vague answer to a really good question, just because I don't think we have much to go off of yet, as far as how to be able to do that. But it is important, and I think it's probably one of the most. It's the openness, I think, that we really want to be able to foster with this, and making sure that there's, kind of a very broad, outreach, so that we can, hit as many things that are important to the community. Any other questions, comments? One of the things I was just going to highlight too, and again, yet to be determined, the meeting requirement, again, the challenge being, kind of first is trying to be able to situate it amongst everyone else's, kind of standing meetings, both select board, school committee, FinCom, et cetera. But I'm hopeful that they'll, happen at least on a monthly basis, from that perspective. And I think probably, earlier on, we might, look for, a greater frequency as it relates to that. So, and I just bring that up from the standpoint of, for anyone that wants to volunteer to understand that, the commitment from that perspective.
I would actually think it would be bi-weekly between the end of January when the group is formed and April town meeting, because that's like a 6 to 7 week, it's a short period to have something to say at the town meeting. So I would agree with you, bi-weekly, and then hopefully monthly after that.
Yep. You got something, Marianne?
No.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something. So, no, yep. And then one of the other points too, just to, regardless if members want to volunteer or participate or not, if you don't volunteer, you still can, attend them, to the meetings. They're open, from that perspective. So it's not, if you think, for whatever reason, time commitments or whatever it may be, that it's not, kind of right to be part of the subcommittee, then it obviously doesn't preclude you from participating in the meetings and or attending the meetings, I should say. From that perspective, and then obviously on the back end of that, the FinCom members that are going to be part of it will be reporting back. That'll be part of our liaison report, if not its own agenda item, for all of our meetings, anyways. So just a couple, kind of just housekeeping notes on that. So kind of with that, I'll just kind of, open it up to the folks that, if there are folks that want to volunteer, that are interested in being members of the ARPA subcommittee, I'll just kind of, open it up to everyone and to solicit some feedback.
Well, I'm open, just because I've been following it anyway, and I'm trying to always balance, not just following the school stuff, but the town stuff. But, and I would probably have that time commitment. We'll see what everyone else says. Because there's people who aren't here that can.
What can you assign that's not here?
Joe, yeah, I know Joe was, Joe had a prior commitment that he couldn't, he might be late, but.
Were we talking at you and Jean going on it though as the chair and the vice chair?
Yeah, I mean, I plan to, to kind of volunteer, from my perspective, and but again, I think I think Jean and I both kind of talked about it. If there's, other members that want to, that are willing to, that want to volunteer, I think we don't want to stifle that. We want to make sure that that's, that everyone has, has an opportunity to raise their hand if they want to.
That's exactly how I feel. I actually, my favorite thing is assigning you work. It's like the best at. I do think it's appropriate that the chair of the FinCom be on the subcommittee. I will say that. I do think if you can't, unless it's a commitment, a time commitment or whatever, I do think it would be good if you were on the subcommittee. I'm obviously passionate about the work. I'm very interested in the work this group will do. But to Ed's point, I can attend the meetings and participate as an observer. So I don't feel this overwhelming, like I really want to be on the subcommittee. I think I'm someone who will likely attend the meetings. I will likely participate.
It was your idea.
Well, I really care a lot about this group. I think the work is important. I think it represents a tremendous opportunity for the town. So I really care about it. So yeah, I'd love to be on the subcommittee. But to Ed's point, if there's anyone else in this room who's like, I really want to do this work, I'm delighted to just attend as an observer. And to that point, I would really encourage the FinCom Select Board and School Committee to always post for these subcommittee meetings and have it be a very open, there will be 2 members of the select board on it, but tell the other 3, by all means, come to the meetings, by all means, participate. I think truly, the more people who are in the room, the better and richer the discussion's going to be. So that's where I'm at. happy to do it if it fills a hole, but also happy to just be an observer.
Okay, Bill?
In terms of the timeframe you laid out, right now, state law allows you to use hybrid and remote up until the spring. I think it's April 1st. Certainly that can change, but, it could be that you have to be in person at some point, but there is no remote option, just so you know.
Oh, that's a good point. Thanks,
That's a
Bob.
great point.
Thanks, Bob.
Yep.
Anybody else that wants to volunteer? Well, then we made this pretty easy then, which which I appreciate. I don't know if that was the plan, but if it's if this holds, then it'll be Mary Ann, Jean, and myself as the. But we should vote on that, right?
Yeah.
Shit. Okay.
It's a
Hopefully I said that soft enough. Yeah, hopefully I said that soft enough. Can we vote them as a lot, or we don't do them as a?
Whatever you like.
Okay, well, let's,
Want a motion?
I'll take a motion, yes, please. Thank you.
Move to appoint, I'm going to use first names because we all know who we're talking about, Mary Ann, Jean, and Ed as the FinCom representatives to the ARPA subcommittee.
Second.
Thanks, Mark. All right, well, any discussion? Not appearing. We'll go to a vote. I'll start with the folks on Zoom. Jackie?
Yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
And Ed, yes. Great. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0. Well, now, again, thank you. Easy enough. There wasn't a lot more to do on that. As far as anything else, I mean, again, I know we started with questions, but any other kind of questions, comments about ARPA committee before we move on to the next agenda item? Actually, a quick question for you, Sharon. Has there any new developments kind of come up, at all as it relates to ARPA, or anything that you've seen or heard?
The only thing that's been going on is that I've been working with the auditor to do the lost revenue, and they got back to me, and so I'm just trying to extrapolate their changes and get to a number. But,
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, other than that, nothing. I mean, I've been to trainings, nothing new has come up. The one thing that the auditors did say is that 130-page document is called the interim final rule. They're expecting that they'll give something that's final, and I don't know how different it would be. They spent so much time putting that together. So they're hesitant to make a call on anything because they think, this one says interim final rule. I'm wondering if something more official is coming. And I'm like, the money, we all have the money. We're all starting to spend it. I can't imagine they would make much more changes. But they were happy to look at the calculation and provide as much guidance based on what they can see is out there currently. I think they're just hesitant because the word interim is in the guidance that's being given.
So on the, the other trainings, like, are you starting to see more money being allocated and spent? Like, are you seeing more activity, or is it more just lobbing questions?
I mean, a lot of it is being presented just ideas, and
Gotcha.
then there's not a lot of discussion by the participants. You don't actually get to hear what they're using it for. They're trying to kind of point you in the direction of what the
Gotcha.
intent is, and not necessarily a lot of discussion about what each community is doing.
Gotcha.
That you might see if you went to like a MMAAA conference. I'm going to one soon. I'm sure it will be discussed. I'm sure people will be picking each other's brain, going, what are you doing with the money? What ideas have come up in your community? And that's usually how it goes. Or through email, but I feel like more emails come out for the MMAAA of tell me what your community is doing, and nobody's answering. So I still feel like people are a little frozen and don't know exactly what direction they're going.
Is the money in hand? Like if someone said, okay, next
Half of the
month.
money's already sitting in their account.
So we have, it could be, if there was an emergency, that was somehow related to the purpose, and we had to draw on it, we could, not that. there
Yeah, I mean, the
was
money's
nothing
already there, so it's like, well, it'd be nice if something more is coming that's more official than that interim final rule
Right.
that's 130 pages long. I'd like to get it soon.
Yeah.
You said half of it's there?
Half
much
the
is it?
money is there.
Wow.
I think we're supposed to get more money sometime, I want to say May.
It's interest-bearing account too.
Of course.
Yeah, just for Beacon Hill, last night, the House and Senate announced that they struck a deal on the $4 billion, and I think the House Speaker expressed some confidence that they'd be able to pass a compromise bill during the informal sessions, which is, the formal sessions don't start up again until after New Year's. But his preference, at least, was not to wait until after New Year's to pass that compromise bill sometime this month in informal.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks, Sharon, for that. For that update. I'm constantly fascinated to hear what's kind of what's happening behind the curtain a little bit there as far as that goes. So, thanks for that. So the last agenda item that we had was something I kind of mentioned at the end of last meeting, and we just kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. Is looking at the finance, FinCom information that's on the town website. Bobby mentioned, in the last meeting, and again, earlier, that the town's looking at doing, kind of a whole, revamping of the town website. Hopefully, we have in the minutes Mary Ann's request to have all of her trails still well marked for her to get all the information that she requires. We need all those paths, kind of well marked for Mary Ann. But
I'm not the only one.
no, you're just the only one I heard from. That's I don't want to make it. That's not solely for you. But and this was something that Gene and I had kind of talked about as well. It very easily could have been you could just port the information that's already on there onto the website, but from one website to the other. But I think it's also probably, I don't know how dated it is. I mean, it is, I don't know how long it's been in its current state. And so my thought on it is kind of under this kind of theme, I always want to, kind of leave things a little bit better than I found them. And so if there's a way to be able to, as a committee, for us to be able to, to kind of affect some of that change, wanted to be able to throw that out there. And, in the same context as ARPA, is if there's some volunteers that wanted to be able to look at that and work on that. I have, kind of as a broad stroke thinking that you may want to use other towns and what they have is on their websites as a guidepost, but also just discussions amongst ourselves and staff, et cetera, as far as what we want to, how do we want to update it. So just some of my thoughts at a broad level. I don't know if there's any other kind of questions or other kind of points that folks wanted to raise.
Yeah, as you're speaking, I was just like looking at the Wakefield FinCom page, and it's not, I could volunteer to be the person to look at some other ones to get some ideas, because I do that anyway, so I was just saying.
That'd be great.
Because I think, even, we don't even have our packets when we get emailed the packets, but most of the other boards, the packets go on the town page, and I think I still had I had our FinCom page up somewhere, or maybe I can just reopen it. I don't even see, when we click, it's just our agenda,
Just the
not,
agenda,
sometimes
yeah.
it's the packet, but not always. So, even just having more complete meeting information, but on our page, and I said this before, the last financial forum presentation under news and announcements was in 2016. So, even, I think that's something, unless you know the dates of the financial forum, that's something probably people like to look at, because usually it's a good overview of, here's all the capital projects coming up. It's less time than having to look through, say, town meeting warrants.
I think that's a good point too.
Some of those.
I mean, and this may go back to the whole reworking, but one of the things that I again, would be nice to see, is that, in that, if there's also the link to the replay. You know what I mean, like, so if you had the agenda,
That's,
Like TV.
Wakefield does have links to their videos, when I was just
That's
looking
planned.
at
I
that.
think that's
Oh, it is?
on the new website, yeah.
I'll take
So it's a
that,
website.
I'll take that as my
They have
idea, but
budget
that's,
reports
that's
and
good.
It is right now.
Well, but they really
Good job,
improved in the
Ed.
navigation, like the new
Picking it
I've
up.
website.
seen what it looks like, and it looks very easy to use, but I'm not.
Because we're talking about content versus,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that, like,
We have to decide what we're going to move over to the new website.
The main complaint about the current website is there's too much.
yeah.
And, just like me trying to clean up my garage, what do I throw out? That's
Yeah.
not an easy question.
have you ever heard of this, Sharon? Open checkbook?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, others do use that, yeah.
Yeah, because it says it provides taxpayers a view into Wakefield's expenditures for fiscal year and can be searched by category department. This is a really neat feature, and it's under their budgets, reports, and publications. So people, I think that's a logical place to put the town budget too. And then they have annual time reports, but then open checkbook. Maybe I've seen that website. So anyone who wants to say, how much does whatever town, what percent of the budget is school? Well, Reading is 67%, and maybe not. So that's, and it's just something like you would embed, so that's a neat thing. And I'll look at some more, but I had seen that website elsewhere, I didn't see towns linking to it.
I will say, when we started having this discussion, I spent maybe 10 minutes, and I don't think I spent more than 10 minutes, but I went to some surrounding communities, and I didn't think our description of our finance committee fared well. I think there's some better descriptions out there that we can completely neutralize to Ed's point.
Like the mission, you mean?
Yeah, it's just the mission, like what the finance committee does. There's just some nice language that's a little more user-friendly. I think ours might come directly from the charter.
I think
Charter.
yours-
Right, so it's just very legal, it's very dry.
It's more than 20 years old, just so you know.
Yeah, I think there's a way to say the same thing in a way that's more friendly and more,
Yeah.
easily understandable.
Yeah, we do have a link to our budgets, but I think that there's probably more that
This is a Peter Heck
the
Club
people,
award, so I
the
know.
presentations can help.
Vigilantly.
Diligently, huh?
Do we know that, did you say February, or like when was we gonna change over to the new website?
I heard it was early February, but the last meeting I went to, they said the day after you leave. So I think the last week of February, early March.
Current launch is end of February.
Okay.
Thanks, Jackie. I'm sorry, what were you saying, Jane?
If no one else is interested, I'm happy to partner with Mary Ann on that. Particularly,
Okay.
the usability side, I think you're better suited to, but the writing side, I can do. Like,
Yeah.
we can tag team that. I'm happy to take a look at some other
I
ones.
think we just try to think about what are the things that people always ask about that wanna know.
The elevator pitch, what is the finance committee? But
Yep.
Three
What is it,
sentences, here's
and
what it is.
How
here's
much
what-
free cash? It could be like the account balance of free cash running in the
Something you
morning.
can start with.
Oh,
I
thank
just
you.
happen to print a bunch of stuff out.
I do like what Mary Ann just said, that the free cash balance like ticking.
I was kidding.
You want the cash
No, there
balance
should
up
be
there?
some sort, there should be some, it may not be the free
Fidelity
cash
account.
balance, but there should be something. There should be some sort of clock.
The Doomsday Clock.
Yes. Well, that's good. Well, and does anyone else want to, want to partner with Jean and Mary Ann on that piece of it? And, but thank you both for volunteering. I think that's great. And if there's anything that I can do to help in the process, just let me know. Good. Well, we're kind of trucking right along here, agenda-wise. As far as next meetings, are we set? Are we supposed to meet next Thursday?
The 8th.
I believe that the select board will do budgets on the 8th, which is Wednesday next week, and the
Okay.
14th, which is Tuesday after that. That should be confirmed by tomorrow afternoon.
Okay. That's what,
And does not seem to be any need to meet on the 15th to do budgets. That was in your draft agenda, as 3 possible dates.
okay. And I know that I saw in the school committee packet there, they have a bullet on their agenda. They're starting to kind of talk about budgets for tomorrow night. I'll either attend or listen in.
Yeah, I don't know that they'll have, I think the superintendent may be still on paternity leave.
I think
He's
he's
on
back a
till
week
the-
from today.
Yeah, he's back on the 9th, so.
Yeah, so I think this was,
We may not get into too much.
yeah, I think this one was more from Susan than from, because she had actually, I went through the packet a little bit last night, or I think it was last night. But she had a kind of a bunch of different, she did something very similar. She had the process that, in Arlington and Wake, she had a bunch of different towns that she, and I just kind of cursory kind of looked through it. But I thought it might be an interesting, kind of discussion point. So I'll listen in on that tomorrow night, and then I can, kind of talk through that on our next meeting as a liaison report.
Oh,
Circle
right,
back.
all of her different introductions to the budget process.
That's it. That was it.
That's a really good thing in the packet. I was gonna do my packet sharing, but I think it might be something useful for us
Yeah.
to see if it talks about beyond this.
Yeah, that's kind of, that was, not the rest of the school committee agenda wasn't great, but that was the one I honed in on.
It
Was
ties in with us.
was that piece, so.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
The 2 upcoming select board meetings, would we expect, you do want all of us to attend and participate in those meetings, or is it more like watch them and know what was said so you get a preview? I just want to know what the expectation is.
It's certainly up to you, but they are meeting like this hybrid, so you have an option of doing in-person or remote.
Okay.
If the past is any guide, Sharon will describe her budget and then say, is there any questions? And the board would start with questions, but if you as the public would have questions, it's up to the board to accept those.
Okay.
It's a lot easier when we just met in person, because it's just more of a discussion, but, I would think if you have a question, you should ask.
Okay.
Yeah, and even when we had a pretty steady stream of Zoom calls this time last year.
Yeah.
Kind of going through it. So, and I don't think all of us ended up attending them, but at least from, again, from my perspective, I even though, you went through it once, kind of in the select board, but then we went through it again, you just pick up more.
Yeah.
Because there's just a little bit more familiarity with it.
That makes sense.
Same thing, and I think more so on the, at least I can recall on the school side, because they were talking about some new positions that they were adding, things of that nature. There was, the more I heard it, the more kind of got fleshed out with it, and it was.
By the time it got to you, you
Yeah.
knew what they were talking about.
Exactly,
Yeah,
and
okay.
I think it made, when we went through it at the end, much more efficient.
Yeah, that makes
At least from that perspective, because it's not the first time you're hearing it. Oh, and again, I'm a slow learner, so it's good for me to hear it 3 times. So that, I'm thinking for myself, not necessarily as the committee, but that, at least from my perspective, it helps to
And
kind of hear
the
it.
hybrid you mentioned, that's another thing the school committee was gonna have a presentation on tomorrow night.
Yep.
Because I don't know how fast, I don't think they'll get it going that fast, but last year, I remember, the school committee met on Teams. So when FinCom was on it, we all had to get special Teams logins to
Yeah.
be able to,
Yeah.
not just watch the meeting, but ask questions. And that, they're not doing it via Zoom now, they're in person, and they won't have I doubt they'll have their hybrid set up for budget season. So we would have to be in person, I think, with school committee, select
Yep.
board. I don't know that you'd get like the special Zoom so that you can be part of the people that the select board chair can see your hand raised versus the general audience. You may have to.
The way the select board tends to do it is kind of any member of the public is the same. They're all allowed into the meeting from the meeting room.
Oh, good.
Some of them wait for different agenda items and then are admitted in for the budgets. I would assume everyone comes in. There'll be potentially, or there's expected to be board and committee members. So when conservation budget is discussed, some members of the council will be there. And anyone that's participating remotely, would actually have the option to raise a hand and everyone will see that. That's used.
Yeah, I think I even heard that on one of the last select board, I think Caitlin got the inevitable task of monitoring all of that, for his questions and go. So, yeah, I think that's, but, not to highlight the school committee agenda too much, but there was also, they had, I think they have a Green Communities presentation on their thing for tomorrow night too.
Yeah, because they have to take a vote by some deadline, I think,
Yep.
to agree. I don't know how the schools are going to be more energy efficient and
Yeah.
turn things off at night, I don't know.
The same policy has to go in front of both elected boards and be approved by both. So the select board have seen the first one, the school committee sees the first one tomorrow night, same exact thing.
Okay.
Then they're gonna vote later than that, I think the select board next Tuesday. School committee, I want to say 2 weeks from tomorrow night, whatever that is.
Terrific.
So that's, other than the discussion, the material is fully redundant.
Perfect. Cool, all right, then we can just move on to the minutes, unless there's, is there any other business? Anybody else? Yeah, sure, Jeffrey, go ahead.
I just wondered if we're running a little bit ahead of time on the timeline for the Arpa subcommittee. There was a sort of an item that either sometime in December or January, we're supposed to decide how much free cash is available, is kind of excess for that subcommittee to start to kind of shape out. And given that some of the rest of our meetings are going to be highly focused on specific budget items for school or select board, I wonder if we might start discussing how we would go about figuring out how much of that free cash is excess.
Great question. Bob, Sharon, do you have thoughts on?
Well, you have a policy, so in theory, anything above the highest percent you have in your policy is excess. Then you'd want to look at some sort of projected use over the next, say, 3 years. If you're using $2.5 million every year, then you'd sort of want to say, well, we have to be mindful of that, and then how much are we regenerating, and Sharon would have to give an estimate, so that's how I think you can start. I think it's going to end up being art, not science, by the end.
Yep.
And the incoming budgets are part of that, what you mean the use? Like, some of them are relying on, are any of the, or either the town or the school budget relying on some, we did agree on an amount of free
Yeah,
cash.
whatever you guys, I don't remember, but
Is that
it's
the
2 million
2.5?
something. It's not an even number. It's 2 something that you agree in the fall, and you'd have to discuss among yourselves, what's the likelihood that we go up or down or stay the same?
Right, so it's a projection to say.
Right. And some of that for this year and last year, and I think for one more year, was excess capital.
Yep.
So,
I was thinking it's 2.5, but some amount of that is not planned to be used every year. Yeah, I think it should be a future agenda item on its own, like it's its own agenda item, is a discussion of the free cash balance. And I would just add into that discussion, a discussion of a stabilization fund. I personally don't have an opinion on it, but it's an interesting idea. So it's a good discussion to have at the same time. Whether any or all of that should be in a stabilization fund versus all in free cash.
Yep.
Sharon has some exciting news if you ask her to share.
What exciting news.
We sold debt today.
Oh, yes, we did. And I'd already forgotten about it.
Moving right along.
Yeah, we issued debt at 1.08.
Yep.
Holy moly, that's
How many
amazing.
years?
Out to 15, some of it.
1.08.
15 years?
Jeez, oh Christ.
Is-
that's
is-
crazy.
And then the
I gotta
ban
tell you,
is
that actually makes me wish we were borrowing more.
0.46%.
What else can you do?
Ban was for the water,
That'll look like
$2 million for the
less than
water.
a year.
I think so.
That's
Fed's
phenomenal.
already saying it, you know?
Yeah.
Very much lower than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it's,
And the practical result of that, compared to what we assumed for the fall financial forums, is there's about $75,000 a year after next year excess that we had expected. And it's actually a number that starts a little lower and grows, but let's just call it 75. But for FY '23, it's actually a little bit more than we projected. I won't bore you with the reason. It's very complicated. But it's very good news.
It's great
Great
news.
news.
It's great news.
Should we put that up as a press release?
I'll probably put something in the board's packet tomorrow, just a summary.
We never
As
really
you
announced
said
it.
that, it's so weird, it's like you read my mind. As you said that, I said, I never read about stuff like this. We hear about it in FinCom, people who pay a lot, like town meeting members who pay a lot of attention.
Yeah.
It's such great news. I was just thinking, I'd love to be
But it has to
reading
be
this stuff.
converted for the non-financially minded.
Right.
What does this mean? It
Yeah.
means saving money for the town.
Yes, exactly. It means we have more money in the future to use for other priorities, because
Yeah.
this was so efficient.
Because last year we issued at 1.26%, so we even got
That'd be
lower.
really
Like we
good, yeah.
were looking at that thinking, that's the greatest
was-
thing ever,
yeah.
and then this issuance even went lower, so.
And I think that was some of our justification, if I recall, to go over the 5% capital and debt
Right,
policy, was we
absolutely.
understood the interest rate environment. We knew that this was, if you're going to borrow, do it now, don't do it in 6 or 12 months. So I think it's great news
Yeah,
across
you're
the
right.
board.
The only time we sort of made a big deal was sometime 5 or 7 years ago, we refinanced debt, and especially debt exclusion for the high school, and we saved the taxpayers $3 million. So that wasn't a question of we could use it for some other purpose. That's like money you didn't pay.
Sheer, yeah,
It's
sheer,
just
yeah.
amazing.
Yep.
So, and you know what? One person said, oh, good.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
And we don't talk about it, and I think people would want to know.
and,
Yeah.
yeah, people would want to know. Yeah, I absolutely do.
I agree, yeah.
What kind of rates you enjoy because of that AAA bond rating, you know?
That's exactly the
Yeah.
point.
I already told the chair I have a family commitment. Happy holidays, everybody.
Came to you.
Bye, Gene.
Hi, Gene.
Thanks.
Well, it is great news. And I couldn't agree more. Figuring out a way to get it out, that information out into the public, I think it's
I feel like every time we issue data, I'm always surprised it goes lower.
Yeah,
We get
that's
so
great.
excited, and then the next time it's lower.
You've already forgotten about it. You'd already forgotten about it. You did it earlier today.
I was trying to tie something up for workers' comp auditor, so that was what was on my mind, like, what happened today? I forgot.
No, but that is great news. I mean, and it's, again, the benefits of our rating, that's a, kind of a big, kind of a, catalyst for that too, which is great. All right, so we can just go and then look and review the minutes. I don't know, I didn't see anything when I reviewed them earlier tonight. I don't know if anybody else had any kind of questions or comments on the November 4th agenda. All right, not appearing. I'll take a motion for the meeting minutes.
Move to approve the meeting minutes of November 4th.
Thanks, Mary Ann.
Second.
Thanks, Mark. Go to a vote. Jackie?
Yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Ed, yes. It's 6-0. Any other business, any other points from anybody? Oh, our favorite part of the meeting. I'll take a motion.
No, you do it.
Motion to adjourn.
Attaboy, Mark. Thanks, Mary Ann. Jackie?
Yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Ed, yes. 6-0. We stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks.
Nice quick one.
Yeah,
stuff.
we need it because we get a lot of meetings.
I know, yeah, this is a good one, yeah. Thanks, Jackie, thanks, Jeffrey, thanks, Eric.
Hey, how's Andrew doing? Is he?
I haven't heard.
Oh, really? Okay, maybe I'll try that.
Yeah, I haven't heard. I'll send him another note tonight. I haven't heard.
I keep thinking they'll turn up.
I know, me too.
Is that you?
Is yours going down right too?